Now, I Communicate continues on Full Service Radio, AM 830 WCRN. Once again, here's your host, Mark Altman. With your host, Mark Altman.
We're back.
On Full Service Radio.
Welcome to I Communicate, Finding Your Voice. And Dale, I'm sorry we had to cut you short there, that last segment. I would petition the radio station for no commercials, but then we wouldn't be here, so that wouldn't work really well.
I gotcha.
So Dale, I want to phase into how the umpiring landscape has changed in instant replay, but I want to talk about something a little different, and that is one of the fascinating things about baseball to me has always been it's one of the few things in life you can do and be successful 30% of the time as a hitter and be considered famous. And in umpiring, one of the big changes for fans has been always seeing the strike zone on TV now. So when the pitch comes in, the fan can now see whether it's officially a strike or a ball, where prior it was more of a subjective thing. And now you know when the mistake was made. And when I think of over the course of the game, how many hundreds of opportunities there are for an umpire to miss something. Talk about the scrutiny of the ball strike component, because instant replay and out safe calls are one thing, but ball strikes, that's a whole different dynamic.
Well, there's an art to calling balls and strikes, and there's a science. It's like umpiring. There's a science of umpiring and an art of umpiring. Here's what I mean: the strike zone is a three-dimensional rectangular box, so to speak. Of course, you've got your constant, which is the width of the plate, which is 17 inches, and then you have your inconsistent high-low, because it all depends on the hitter. You know, how tall the hitter is, how he approaches the ball, and all of that stuff. The problems we have with the pitch track systems that people see on television is that, a couple things. First of all, the high-low never seems to change much, and the internal system that Major League Baseball uses to look at every pitch that we call is scrutinized and evaluated, and the internal evaluation it takes, after the game's over, it takes a technician for each at bat and each called pitch to draw the high-low lines for that hitter, because it's not as simple as just saying, this guy's 6'2", so here's his line. It's the strike zone, the high-low strike zone, when he's attempting to hit the ball. So, some guys crouch a little more, some guys are up a little more. I mean, that can vary pitch by pitch as far as that goes.
That makes sense.
Television doesn't have a chance to do that in real time and show the pitch. So the high-low is a little suspect, but okay, just so we know that. The other thing is, I am not sure how they're calibrated as far as the inside-outside. The plate's 17 inches. The ball is another 2 1/4 inch in diameter, and by rule, if any part of the ball is over any part of the plate, that's within the high-low, that's a strike. So it could be on the very edge of the ball, is on the very edge of the outside corner. That actually means that plate is extended about 2 inches on each side, because it's hitting over the plane of the plate. I'm not sure what the calibration is on these television ones. I don't know if when you see a pitch that's just outside that line, I'm not sure if that means it is outside that buffer of 2 1/4 inches, or if it's outside just the edge of the plate, which would mean it's probably a good pitch, because it's still within that 2 1/4. So not to get technical, but those, when we're talking about pitches and the differences between 1/4 of an inch, or less, those things are important. So yes, it gives you a facsimile, the viewer of the location of the pitch. It's not as accurate as the internal stuff that MLB uses to evaluate us, and sometimes it can be a little. To me, a little confusing. When you see a pitch that's just off the line on the outside corner, and people think, what's he looking at? My God, I mean that's way outside. Well, that's not way outside. You're talking about a 92-mile-an-hour fastball that might be, an eighth or 1/4 of an inch outside. That's pretty we're pretty good at that.
So,
do we miss pitches? Yes, but we're pretty good at that.
So, Dale, let me ask you this. Let me be direct on something. I'm a traditionalist. I mean, to hear an umpire call a ball and a strike and have umpires as a part of Major League Baseball, I wouldn't want to change it. But I'm sitting here thinking to myself, geez, isn't this really, this whole instant replay thing, it's just inevitable where umpires are going to be phased out completely, because why not just have a person down on the field, announcing whether it's a ball or a strike based on electronics and calling out and safe? Like, why do we even need umpires going forward?
Well, there has been talk, and there has been some that advocate that the computer, should, the pitch track system should call pitches, and that they could do it now if they wanted to, and just have a red light and a green light, and the green light's a ball, and a red light's a strike, or whatever. But when I was saying that there's an art to umpiring and a science, here's a good example why be careful what you wish for type thing. By rule, any pitch that enters any part of the strike zone shall be considered a strike. Well, if you have a pitcher that at the very front edge of home plate where the strike zone starts, and at the very outside corner of the plate, a ball that's a slider or some pitch that with a lot of movement hits that nicks that very part of that zone. But by the time the catcher catches it, it's 2 or 3 inches outside and almost on the ground because it's moving so much. By rule, that's a strike, and those pitch track systems, if they're calibrated correctly, it'll see that it hit that part of the strike zone, and it will call that a strike. That's the science of umpiring. The art of umpiring is no umpire is going to call that a strike, and no player is going to want that to be a strike because it's technically it's a strike, but it's not a hittable pitch, and it's a pitch that the catcher is lunging down and almost catching on the ground. That's a kind of an extreme example, but it's an example to show you that there is a human element in there that deciphers what is acceptable in this level of baseball and what may technically be. Technically a coach is supposed to be in the coaching box, but do we make them do that? No, of course, unless the other team complains that he's stealing signs or something, then we make both teams stay in the coach's box. But so you have rules, but the rules are to be interpreted and to the level of play and what's going on. And if you have a machine calling pitches, you would have those types of things happening. Not to mention, or I haven't even mentioned the fact that the plate umpire has a lot more responsibilities than just pitches. There's hit batsmen, there's catcher interference, there's fair foul situations, there's swing check swings. There's all kinds of stuff that a pitch track system is not going to call. So be careful what you wish for. Do you want a video game or do you want a game of baseball where humans play it? I always joke to people, if you want a video game, well, then if the bases are loaded and 1 out and there's a beautiful, just perfect ground ball to the shortstop, an easy double play, and he lets it go through his legs, do you say, well, after further review, he usually makes that call. We're going to give him a double play. Of course you're not going to do that. I mean, the game's played by humans. So I think replay is good and it corrects obvious mistakes and stuff. But if you think you can use replay and computers and whatever for everything, I think you're going to get results that you're not going to want.
All right, Dale, we have a caller. Wayne has a question for you.
Sure.
Hey, Mark and Dale, how are you?
Good, Wayne. How are you?
Good.
Excellent. So you were just talking about the human element of umpiring, officiating, and as human beings, we all have some people that we like and some people that we don't like. And I'm sure over the years of umpiring, you got to know players pretty well and like some and didn't like others. And how hard is that to not cloud your judgment as you're making a close call?
Well, frankly, it's not that hard. When I, for example, if I'm working first base and I have a bang play at first, I'm not thinking, well, who was the runner? Oh, that's right. Yeah, I don't like that guy much. But the shortstop, I don't like him very. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna call him safe. I mean, these things just aren't in your psyche. I mean, there are players that are more difficult to work than others. Absolutely. There are some players that are easier to work than others. But when it comes down to it, the way we're evaluated on every pitch that we call for the entire season. We're evaluated on every play that we call the entire season. We're evaluated even on plays that we have no calls that maybe we should have made a call, like an obstruction or something that we didn't call, and that kind of stuff. So you don't have the luxury to just pick and choose when you want to have a correct call or when you want to stick it to some player or whatever. You understand the personalities, and you understand there's certain players, there's certain managers, there's certain teams that are just difficult to work. They constantly are questioning everything you do or anything that's close, and it gets kind of old. But that's just their makeup. There's in the business world, there's certain clients that aren't a lot of fun, and some that are much more fun. But they're clients, and you still have to try to do the best you can to keep their business or whatever. And as for us, the bottom line is we want to get pitches and plays right. We don't want to be the story. Sometimes we are. Sometimes we are because we're doing our job. Sometimes we are because we make mistakes. But the bottom line is you just want to do your job, and regardless of who is the runner or the hitter or the pitcher.
So Wayne, thank you for the call. Dale, we'll be coming back for our next segment. When we come back, we're going to talk about a game-changing moment Dale has had in the last few years. We'll be back after the break.